Alex, welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Antonio.
We're gonna have a lot of fun here.
Yeah,
Uh,
excited.
Please just go and introduce yourself. Who better than you to introduce yourself?
So yeah, my name is Alex Bancila, and I'm a sophomore at the University of Illinois, and I'm on the tennis team there. So that's who I am.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Um, I know you have a lot of friends and people love you. Your friends like you.
Thank
So
you.
so let's go ahead. I'm gonna take you on a journey, okay? And
Sounds
the
good. Let's do
journey
it.
is a little bit your the beginning of your tennis, and we're gonna travel until today with a few questions.
Sounds good.
So my first question for you is, how did you start to play tennis?
So my dad actually he played tennis. He played a lot. He played, he was a very good junior, and then he kind of got me into it. I was always hanging around the club with him. So he got me into it when at a very young age. Obviously also let me play a lot of other sports up until I was like, I'd say 10. I was playing 3 or 4 different sports. Tennis was one of them, not as often as I am now. But my dad let me play soccer and other things. He actually didn't really want me to play tennis. He didn't want that to be my first sport because he knew how tough it was. And then in the summers, I would spend most of my summers in Romania, in Bucharest. That's where my parents are from. That's where my parents met, and that's where my grandparents live. So I would spend my summers there. And my grandfather, who traveled with my dad everywhere, kind of would take me on the court every summer, and I started to kind of love the sport there and really liked it because it was individual sport compared to something other than like soccer that's a team sport. So I knew that it would depend only on me. So I would say my dad and my grandfather were probably my biggest influences in tennis. My dad was always fine with whatever I was gonna do. Didn't say, like I said, didn't want tennis to be my first sport, but I fell in love with it, and I guess here I am today.
Right. Well, um, so yeah, I knew that from you that your father was a tennis player as well. So yeah, that's a good way to get into tennis. And you remember how old you were when you first pick up a racket?
So I first picked up a racket probably when I was like 5 or 6, but it was nothing serious.
Mhm.
I'd say that I started playing tennis as my main sport, more than once a week when I was 9. So fairly
Okay.
late compared to other people. There's some people that start playing when they're like 3 years old, can barely walk. I didn't have that path. I had a slightly different path. You know, like I said, I played a few sports up until I was 9, and then when I was 9, I decided to go more into tennis. But that's when I started seriously, I would say.
Okay. And what were the other sports you played?
So I played soccer. I really like soccer. Obviously in Romania and in Europe, that's very big. So I had a lot of influence from there. I played in a local club in Romania near my house when I was like, I think eight or nine. I was pretty good at it because I like to run. So I guess people can figure that out from my tennis game as well.
Sure.
But I really liked it. It was a way for me to make friends as well, I guess. I don't think I really ever had a problem when it came to making friends, but it was just easier to make them through sports. And then I also played when I was in the fourth grade. I played lacrosse. That was actually a sport that I really liked, and I was quite good at just because I was fast and I could get away from everyone that was trying to hit me.
Uh-huh.
So that was a nice sport. And but then I just ultimately, again, it came down to everything being on my own, and tennis was the only sport that really offered that from what I had played. Lacrosse and soccer, obviously great sports and stuff, but it was big team sports. And although I'm part of a team now, it's still.
All the sports are great, but tennis is the best.
Yeah, for sure. I have to agree with you. Played a
So,
played, played a lot of ping pong too, but that's different.
but tell me, so you grew up in Romania or you grew up in the United States? How
So
was that?
yeah, so I was born in New York actually. I was born in the States. and my grandparents still lived in and still do live in Bucharest. So that's how the Romania connection happened. So I would spend obviously 10 months out of the year here, going to school, whatever, and living here in New York with my parents. And then in the summers, I would go to Romania, and I
Okay.
would spend time with my grandparents there, and friends, and the rest of the family there. But it was also a way for my parents to kind of keep my Romanian side as well, I guess. Romanian is my first language. I learned to speak English after I learned to speak Romanian. So at home, when I'm here at home, I speak Romanian with my parents. So I think that was a way to have just the Romanian aspect of my blood. Just you know,
Nice, very nice.
yeah,
I love that. I
yeah,
love that. So you grew up multicultural. Two
yeah,
languages is very
yes,
good. It's
yeah,
then easier to learn the third as well. Once you learn two, the third
yes,
comes easier.
yes.
Alex, so being your father a tennis player in a good one, what was his role? Or was it your mother more in charge of your tennis? How was that? Or your grandpa? Who was the one taking
Yeah,
care?
so
Which one the role was? Was he your
yeah, so
teacher? Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah, so it was actually I like to think that my dad was very smart about the way he went about it, because being that he was my dad, and obviously knowing I had a passion and I guess a talent for the sport from a young age, he expected a lot out of me, and rightfully so. So I guess on the tennis court, sometimes everything, my fundamentals, my basics, my strokes, my everything, my most of my knowledge for the game comes from him. I He's very knowledgeable when it comes about the sport. He keeps it very simple. He doesn't keep it complicated. And so my dad is the one that formed me to the player that I am today, with my strokes and and just the fundamentals. But soon after I started to become very into tennis and take that as my full time sport, we decided to separate the father and the tennis aspect, just because we felt that would be the most beneficial for our relationship going forward. So when I was here, in when I was younger and still lived in New York and also in Chicago. Once I was 10, we moved to Chicago, but um, I would work with him all the time. I'd have a lot of privates with him, so that was good. And
Like
then
every day, for example, every day you would hit
yeah,
with your
I'm
dad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would hit with my dad
Okay.
every day. We'd work on a lot of technique and stuff. Obviously, from a young age, I think it's very important to develop that. So I think he did a great job with that.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me stop you there because this is my next question, which I love this answer because it reveals a lot about yourself also. And which was your learning style? Did you learn tennis through, for example, playing the game, or learning a lot of technique and after playing the game, or was it a certain mentality, a philosophy? You got to be a fighter, or you got to be courageous. Which way, or a little bit of everything? Just tell us a little bit which your path was.
I personally think that I was kind of a little bit of everything. I like to be very hands on with anything that I do. I feel like I learn the best that way. So I definitely felt like being on court and having my dad show me something, and then me being able to reproduce that. I definitely think that was the best way to go about it for me. However, anyone that knows me, you know that I love the sport. So I spend a lot of time on my own, just being on YouTube and stuff from a young age, watching highlights and stuff. So I was able to take things from the top players, um, and incorporate that into my game. I wouldn't say necessarily anything about my strokes. There's a lot of players out there that can, their strokes or their game style looks similar to another player. Um, I don't really think that I took anything strokes from anyone that specifically. Maybe on the back end, maybe someone like Nalbandian or Murray. But I definitely think that the mentality aspect, it just comes from the person you are. To be honest, I mean, uh, I like to think that I'm a hard worker. I put my heart and soul into everything that I do, especially tennis. So I definitely think that having the the hands-on with my dad, and then also the technology nowadays is just, it's so much easier to have access to everything probably than it was back in the day, when my dad was younger, for example. And so I definitely think it was a culmination of a lot of things, but I really think that the most beneficial for me was being on court. And I've been exposed to quite a lot of practice, you know practices at a high level with a lot of good coaches like you and Seb. And a big impact on my life in tennis was Gabriel Trifu. So having a little bit of everything and a little bit of knowledge from a lot of different parts of the world and different backgrounds, I think really has helped me.
Okay. So, but I picked something up there. You said that you observe how things were done by your dad or by other players, and then you went and, and tried yourself. So you
Yeah.
were like a visual learner.
Yes, yes. I've always been told that in practices and stuff, or something, that if I'm told to do something, I'll pick it up right away. And I definitely feel that's the case. So if I see something, I think I'm very good at reproducing that, and just being very familiar. I think that comes along with being familiar with my body, knowing what I can do. So I definitely think that the visual aspect for me is definitely really big.
Okay. Okay. Nice, nice. Alex, another question that is so important because you've been playing tennis for so many years already, no?
Yep.
Uh, what motivates you? What keeps you going? What are the things, because tennis has ups and downs, and what is the one thing that keeps you going, that you say, okay, I'm back in tennis?
To be honest, for me, it might sound a little cheesy, but for me, it's honestly the love of the game. I love everything about it. I study a lot about it. I'm very passionate. I have a lot of school projects and presentations that I've done on it. Actually, a few this semester. I know, me of all people, as long as any other tennis player will know, that there's some days where it's really tough, and motivation quite isn't there, especially with when you have a pandemic that you don't really know where in what direction it's headed and stuff, and there's no tournaments and you don't really know what you're working for. I just try to be the best version of myself on the court. I want to leave my tennis career, whatever that is, college, pro, after. I want to leave knowing that I left it all out there and knowing that I did everything to the best of my ability. So that's something that really keeps me moving forward.
Okay, so I hear there a strong inner drive, like it
Yeah,
comes from
for sure,
within.
for sure. I play for myself. I don't play for anyone else, because like I said, my dad didn't want me to play tennis. It's not like I play for someone or anything. I play for myself. So I really enjoy the sport. I love it. There's a lot of aspects that I love about it. I love learning about it. So that is definitely an inner drive.
Okay, when you say I can understand your father, that he didn't want you to go too seriously about tennis because it's tough. But how about now that he sees you're a good player, you have a good level, college? Does he is he still
No,
very involved, or
no, he's definitely very involved. Actually, when I'm back here at home in Cleveland, I try and work with him every single day. To be honest, not only because there's only a few players here that I know, but also just because we're at a stage where I'm old now, and older, I should say. And all the stuff that we were worried about that would affect the relationship and stuff earlier on, really isn't something that we're too worried about anymore. Just because I'm obviously a lot more mature than I was when I was younger. He understands me and my game a lot better now, after seeing my level and seeing my progress over the last 11 years. So I definitely think that now he's very happy that I chose tennis, obviously, but he didn't, I guess, didn't want to have a lot of influence in saying like, oh, he's playing tennis because I made him. My parents were never like that. They're always like, do what makes you happy, and I chose tennis, so that's what makes me happy, and I guess that makes them happy.
okay, awesome, awesome. And your mom, does she have any role in this
Yeah,
father-son relationship
my my mom my
with
mom has a
tennis?
hu- my mom has a huge role in this relationship. Throughout juniors and stuff, when I was still playing like Midwest tournaments and in the United States before I started playing ITFs. My mom was the one that was traveling with me, mostly because her work schedule was a little more flexible than my dad's,
Mhm.
but also just because at times I would get a little nervous playing in front of my dad and stuff, just because he obviously knows a lot about tennis. So at times I would second guess certain decisions I would make on the court and stuff. So it was just easier for me to have my mom there. Now that I'm older, I can't wait, hopefully with this whole Corona situation, but I can't wait to have my dad watch me at one of the matches that we have this upcoming season. But my mom has played a massive role in my tennis career. Not only has she been able to keep me together mentally at times when I've been down on myself, but also she didn't have a background in tennis, but she's learned a lot through watching me and always knew what to say, what right things to say to me, when to say them and stuff. So her and my dad played a part equally. That's for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that sometimes mothers have a little bit more time to go to tournaments and
Yeah.
be assistant coaches.
Yes, exactly.
Father head coach, mother assistant coach. Good, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, I have another question. I don't know if this is gonna be easy, but have you had in this time that you've been playing tennis any moment of insight, any learning that you say, finally I learned this, and what was that?
Yeah, I know exactly what to think of when you ask that question. I think it was about end of 2017, beginning of 2018. Had just started playing ITF summer of 2017, and that's when I decided that I was going to move from Chicago and moved to at the time Bradenton, Florida, to train with Gabriel Trifu, full time. He's the Davis Cup captain for Romania. He was a great player when he played as well. I think he was like top 120 ATP. So when I moved down there and decided to go full time with him and train in Bradenton, one of the most insightful things he ever helped me realize was my game. Sorry, my game style and what where my positioning should be on court. That was always something I guess I had struggled
Where
um,
what? Where what?
with my positioning
Okay.
on the
Okay.
court. I guess that was something I really struggled with from a young age, just because Rafa was my favorite player. So I thought that I could do what Rafa does, and at times stand 90 behind the baseline and just grind and hit a winner out of nowhere. But when you're 14, you weigh 90 pounds and you're 5'1", that really doesn't work. So as I got older and stuff, that was a habit that was tough for me to break, I guess. Even though it became easier as I got older, stronger and stuff, it's still not an ideal way to play. And obviously, Rafa doesn't play like that, but I just didn't understand that as a young kid. So I think, yeah, 2017, end of 2017, I think we were in Mexico, in Yucatan. We were playing the grade one, and it was my last round of qualies, and it was probably my first big tournament that I played. And I was in qualies, the last round of qualies, and I remember right before the match we had spoken about where my core positioning was going to be and where I was going to be on the return and where I'm looking to be, just trying to control the point during the rally. And I think that was the biggest epiphany for me, I guess, because I was able to find a middle ground. And not to say that sometimes I'm not sometimes farther back or being a little too aggressive, but I was able to find a middle ground and kind of feel my game out really well and kind of realize the player that I am and just be able to build on my strengths from there.
Okay. So we're talking 2017. How old were you there?
I was 17.
Oh, you were 17. Okay. Okay. Yeah. A good age.
Yeah.
Um, so we go from 2017 to 2020. What is, and if you don't want to answer this one, don't. Just tell me no. Nope. No, I'm not answering. But I would love to hear it. What is your biggest challenge right now at this very moment?
Mm, I would say my biggest challenge right now is, I guess, being a little more arrogant on court. Um, I guess that it's just like a lot of tennis players. There's always the doubt that creeps in and stuff, and I think that that's one of the biggest challenges um, that I guess not only me, but from what I've talked with my friends that also play tennis, is just I guess the self doubt within. There's obviously always going to be tough days and days where you don't play your best, but there's also going to be great days where you play great and you feel amazing and you're like, wow, I'm the best tennis player. But it's probably, I'd say, dealing with those days and realizing that it's not the end of the world if you have like a bad day or a bad match, and stuff. And I think that's definitely the one thing that is the biggest challenge. I think not only for me but for tennis players in general. There's a lot of players out there who, there's a lot of uncertainty. But that's what I'd say. Just bouncing back from the bad days, the bad practices, whatever it may be, and just keep moving forward. But that's what I would say is a big challenge.
Okay. So self-doubt, uncertainty, but you started, as you mentioned, a process of understanding your game and yourself a little better on
Yes.
2017.
Yes.
So 3 years have passed, and you feel you have made progress on that self-doubt.
Yes. No, 100%.
It's
I
getting
just,
more
yeah.
like solid or stable.
No, of course. And I think you can tell me this as well because you saw me when I was, I think, 17, when we were training at West Palm, or Boca West, sorry, with
Yeah.
Kitu and Will as well. And obviously, I was younger there, had slightly different game style, fundamentals, basics were pretty much the same. But I'm sure you can see my improvements and stuff. And I think regardless of what you work on and stuff, there's always that next level to it. So I would like to think that from 2017 to 2020 now, where we are, I've gone up a few levels. So that uncertainty and that all that stuff that you still feel when you're 17 or 16 or even younger, it's always going to be there, I guess, but it's just at different levels as well. So I feel like as the level gets higher and stuff, there's more to think about. But I definitely think that I've made massive strides in my game since then. But I do think that regardless of whatever level you're at, you're always going to deal with some sort of challenge or whatever you're facing.
Of course, I think the challenges will never stop. They
Yeah,
come in a different way, but they are there.
yeah, they come in waves.
Um, what do you dream about, and why?
That's,
Tough one, huh?
yeah, it's a tough question.
Yeah, I know.
I personally don't, when I was younger and stuff, and I was 10 or whatever, and watching Rafa, I was like, damn, it'd be cool to win the French Open. So I think that would definitely be like a dream. But I try to take it in the present and stuff, and it's no particular reason. I don't like to really think about the future and stuff, just because you don't know what's going to happen. So if you start thinking about it, you waste energy thinking about something that you have no idea what way it's going to go. So I ideally, like when I was younger, I definitely think that that was a dream and stuff. But I try to take it day by day, week by week, and then just go from there. I know that you know I can get to a really good level, regardless of what that'll be. Really good level in college, really good level in pros. So I just try to take it easy and not think too far in advance. To just focus on the present and focus on what I can control.
Okay, understood. Good,
Yeah.
good. Um, have you learned any life lessons from being around tennis?
No, 100%. All
Eh,
all my life I've been all around tennis. All my friends, I'd say 98% of my friends are only from tennis.
yes.
Um,
Can you share like a one life lesson that you say, okay, I learned this skill through tennis and I can apply it in other
yeah,
areas
I
of life?
I definitely think that the communication aspect, and just who I am as a person and what type of person I want to be seen as is definitely something that I think can transfer into life. And as you know, as a lot of people know, I when I played juniors, I made a decent amount of friends. My closest friend group, Tyler, Will, Mark, those guys, I met them through tennis. If it wasn't for tennis, I wouldn't have them. So I'm thankful for the people that I've met, but also the relationships that I built along the way. A lot of the times I was traveling alone to these tournaments, and so I would meet people there, and you can attest to this, but tennis is, it can become a lonely sport sometimes. especially when if you're not traveling with like a big group, like some of the big tournaments. There's obviously weeks where you're on your own, or you go to a different tournament than where your academy goes and stuff. So I was able to maintain good relationships with people that I would meet through the tennis tournaments and stuff. And I definitely think that's something that could be applied in real life too. It's made me more outgoing. I'd say when I was younger, when I say I was about 11 or 12, I was quite shy.
Mhm.
um not that, not for any particular reason, I just was. And then when I started playing tennis and meeting all these really cool people, and my best friends, i um I realized that there's no point in being shy, because if someone doesn't like you, they don't like you, like whatever. But the best you can do is just be a good person, be a good human, and only good things will happen. So that's something I live by. I definitely think that this is something that will help me throughout my life, to be, you know, outgoing and stuff. I've met not only people, tennis players, but I've also met former tennis players, coaches, physios, stringers, whatever, you name it. I've met a lot of people from different tournaments that I still every now and then will keep in touch. We'll send messages for the holidays. So I think that that's really important.
Okay, so relationships, huh?
Yeah.
Relationships was one of the biggest gifts. Nice, very nice, Alex. I have one more question for you. And today, what advice would you give to little Alex, the one that started to play tennis with 9 or 10 when he started to get serious, or 12, 13? Would you have an advice for him?
Yeah. I'd probably say I have probably two things. One would be live in the moment, because when I was younger, like I said, like I mentioned, when I was younger, I would think a lot in the future, and I'd ask myself where I'd be in 5 years or whatever in tennis, and if I'm not here, then I shouldn't be considered a good tennis player. Blah blah blah, all this stuff. That, and also at times, the only way I can say it, sounds bad, but it's not. Don't take it too seriously, because I think that anyone that knows me knows that tennis is something I love, something I care about a lot, and that goes with anything in life, not only tennis. But if you care about something too much and want something too much, you're gonna end up stressing too much about it, and then end up maybe not being able to perform at your best. So that's some of the so I should be able to take my own advice to that sometimes, because I still get a little worked up uh about it, and I'd say slightly stressed, because I think about how much I love it and how good I want to be and where I want to end up. And then I end up thinking of 20 different things that just shouldn't be in my mind. So I think that being in the moment, and then also just at times just realizing that it's tennis, it's the sport that you love and stuff, but it's not life or death. So
Okay,
yeah,
good advice.
yeah,
You mentioned something a couple of times that I'm curious how you do it. You mentioned the being in the moment
yeah.
when you play tennis. How do you do that? What is your strategy to be in the moment when you play tennis?
To be honest, when I was younger, I didn't do a great job of that. I would, I don't want to say I took it for granted, but when I was younger and I was in Europe and I was, playing international tournaments when I was 12, 10 or 12, I didn't know that that wasn't really normal for kids my age, especially Americans, because there's a Tennis Europe tour over in Europe, and Europeans
Yeah.
are playing that one, and they're very familiar with that. But I was the only American that would be in the draws, and at the time, I didn't realize that that wasn't normal, and that I was quite lucky. So I just treated it as any other tournament, which, I'm not saying I should have treated it like it was, French Open or Wimbledon or something, but as I gotten older, I grew to realize how lucky I was to be able, to travel the world, meet so many people, but go to so many different countries and cool places, and be able to play tennis there. Nothing really beats that. So as I got older, I became smarter and I guess wiser in that situation, in that aspect, because I was just kind of realizing where I am in the world, and realizing that I'm quite lucky to do this, and that I shouldn't be stressing about everything else in life, and just like you said, live in the moment. So for me,
Yeah.
it's just the knowing how lucky I've been.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alex. We came to the end, and so I wanted to first thank you very much for your time, and then I want to tell you one thing. You just spent 2 weeks with us here, and it was so nice to have you around. You're
Thanks, man.
such a nice guy, man.
Thanks,
You
man.
you bring so much spirit to practices, good vibes. I know that that's the reason why your friends are your friends. And keep on improving, keep on evolving. I wish you best of luck, and hopefully I'll see you again sometime
Thanks.
soon.
Thanks so much, Tonio, for having me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys for having me uh, down down in Florida. It was a great 2 weeks for me, and it was all around good vibes. So thanks again for having me, and happy holidays.
All right, Alex.
See you,
Take
man.
care of yourself.
Thanks. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.